Good evening and welcome to Skwat Tawks. Tonight we're going to be giving some advice for noobs. While we give some advice for noobs, we're going to be watching me do a workout. I'm doing squats with chain. I work up to about 4 singles with 275 pounds on the bar and about 100 pounds of chain as well on there. And so after I finish those back squats with chains, I end up doing some deadlift variations just kind of as a preventative lower back and hinge thing. So I think there's a few sets that aren't captured in the video, but and I don't think the accessory work is in there either, but you'll see me working most of the warm-up sets. I do the bar, I do 135, 225, and then work up to those 275 for four singles. You'll also see me getting a whiff of some smelling salts that I bought through Jujimafu's company as well. I haven't really experimented with it, but it was kind of a fun experiment for me today. So tonight we're going to be talking about advice for noobs, and I have, I think, about 7 pointers that if you're just starting out with lifting, or even if you're older and you're just kind of getting into lifting, or if you're getting back into lifting, I think these are some pieces of advice that I think would have been useful to me when I was younger. Some of these things I did a pretty good job of when I was a noob. Other things maybe not so much. So hopefully some of this advice for noobs will be useful to you if you're a noob, or even if you're someone who's kind of an old hand at lifting. My first piece of advice would be focus on the basics. Now, I know everybody says that, but you go into any kind of gym and you see people kind of spending a lot of time and effort on what we might kind of call fluff exercises. If you are a noob to the gym, it's pretty easy to kind of get caught up in some of those smaller, what we would call accessory work, auxiliary work, fluff exercises, and the classic example of this is tricep kickbacks. Although that's a fine exercise, I guess, for the triceps. I think most people would understand that it can be kind of misplaced effort. And why do people end up losing focus and spending time on some of those smaller exercises? I think it's because it's easier to see visible gains. It's easy to add weight to a very simple exercise. You tend not to get too stale on those exercises. It's a limited range of motion. So I think people tend to kind of lose track of some of those basic exercises. And those basic exercises would be things like squats, deadlifts, presses, pull-ups, rows. Those would be the major exercises. So focus your most effort on those. Work at driving those numbers as best you can. Focus on the basic exercises. My second piece of advice would be to create as much routine and structure as possible for your training. I understand that it can be difficult to find structure and time to work out. Many of us have families, we have jobs, we have school, we have extracurricular activities, a lot of things going on in your life, so sometimes it's very difficult to find the time to work out. So what you want to do is create as much routine and structure as possible. For example, have a set time that you work out. Try to make that as regular as possible. Try to work out on a very regular basis. Frequency is going to be your friend when you're trying to develop new habits. So have a set time. Try to get to the gym as much as possible. That doesn't mean that you need to spend a lot of time there. I think a few sets of some exercises on any given day might be enough, but try to do something most days. When I say create routine and structure, some of that is creating pre-workout rituals. So if you have clothing that you wear specifically for working out, then that's part of your routine, is putting on that clothing to get ready. Having a training partner can be a huge part of creating routine and structure. I would add that a warning about having a training partner is that if you have a bad training partner, a partner that's not dependable, that can be a problem. So try to find somebody that is dependable, somebody that's going to get you to the gym or help you get to the gym or help you work out on a regular basis. My third piece of advice, keep a log. Keep a training log. A notebook is, I think, crucial to keeping notes about your training. Can you keep an online log? Yes. I think that works for some people. I know some people who have kept online training logs for, I guess, going on 2 decades now. The problem with an online log, of course, is that if, for example, you're keeping an online log on a message board or forum, and if that forum decides it's time to call it quits, then hopefully you've kept backup records for that. An advantage of having a physical log, I would say, is that it's really easy to just kind of flip pages back and forth and easily look a year before to see what you did. So in my opinion, a nice notebook is essential to keeping a good training log and records. What should you keep in that training log? Keep dates, obviously exercises, sets, reps, load, and then notes. So if you're feeling sick, if you're feeling under the weather, if you have a tweak, if something is way harder than it should be, if your schedule is extremely difficult and challenging and it's forcing you to change your training a bit, those are the types of things I think you should keep brief notes about in your training log. The fourth advice for noobs that I would suggest is to learn how to cook and eat well. When I'm talking to high school students, and I talk to a lot of high school students who are just starting out and are really wanting to make big progress in the gym, most of them don't eat well. A lot of them skip breakfast. Learn to eat well. That's part of setting that routine and structure. Make sure that you're eating well, make sure that you're eating breakfast, make sure that you're eating good food. Learning to cook is a huge one. If I could give you one piece of advice as far as cooking, I would say learn how to use a slow cooker and learn how to make things like stews, chili. I like curry sauces. Those are the types of things that you can make in a slow cooker. Pot roast is another one. Those types of foods, man, they're high in protein. They have vegetables in them. It's worth your while to learn how to use that slow cooker. I would say buy frozen vegetables. Don't buy those salad packs. I think everyone knows that if you buy those salad packs, half of that ends up going in the trash, almost for sure. Buy frozen vegetables. I would suggest that if you make things like meatloaf, you can blend up some of those frozen vegetables and throw those into a meatloaf, and then you've actually made meatloaf quite a bit healthier. Meatloaf is easy, by the way. So learn how to cook and eat well. That's my fourth bit of advice. My fifth piece of advice would be beware of supplements. Supplements can be really expensive. They can be a huge time drain. I know a lot of people that have spent a lot of money on supplements, including myself. I remember reading an article by Jim Wendler way back in the day. Well, I don't know if it was really way back in the day. It was probably early 2000s, and he was giving advice to high school students who are learning to lift, and he said, you know, beware of the weeder tax. He called it the weeder tax, and I thought that was pretty funny. Supplements, they really aren't, for the most part, they aren't really worth your time. I know that you're going to probably want to buy supplements anyway, so here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Buy a good whey protein, buy a multivitamin and mineral, creatine, and then maybe some fish oil. And that's probably going to do you. I mean, can you buy other things? Sure. but I don't know that they're really doing much for you, and other than putting a dent in your pocketbook. My sixth piece of advice would be set achievable goals and then attain them. It's nice to dream big and have lofty goals. I think that's important too. But for the most part, you want to set reachable goals and you want to attain those. Those are the things that are going to sustain you through plateaus when you are making steady progress. Rather than setting your goal, if you're a 100-pound squat, don't set your goal for a 500-pound squat. That's probably years down the road. Instead, set your goal at 150 because you can probably get that in 6 months or less. Set reachable goals and then achieve those. And then my last piece of advice is this: beware of injury, avoid injury. And I know that it's cliche to say that, and of course you want to avoid injury, but I think about all of the injuries that I've had, and almost all of them have been from kind of impromptu things, impromptu contests in the gym, maybe wanting to get out of the gym in a hurry and rushing things. I remember one time going in during lunch and squatting in slacks and in tennis shoes that weren't proper and ended up hurting a hamstring. So be careful about your training, avoid injury at all costs. Discretion is the better part of valor, in that you should know that it's important to live to fight another day. So focus on the basics, create as much routine and structure as possible, keep a log, learn to cook, supplements, beware of supplements, set reachable goals and achieve them, and avoid injury. That's all I have for you tonight. That's my advice to noobs. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next Skwat Talks.